And we're live. Hello and welcome. I think the YouTube algorithm doesn't like me right now because it's been a while since I have streamed. So what's happening is it's usually when I start a stream or start a video, it actually sends out notifications to a bunch of people and I can see how many people have seen it. And it's been so long that I've streamed that the YouTube algorithm thinks, well, no, this guy's not going to stream, so let's not give him much attention. So I think I'm a little bit of a victim of the YouTube algorithm. We'll see how it goes. I hope this goes out to enough people. We'll see. Wow, I see a question right away. Yeah, if you complete a course, you get a certificate. Yes. If you don't, let me know, and I can take a look. So, welcome. I see people coming in. So hopefully, it's not so much of an algorithm problem. We'll see. This is AI. Ask me anything. You can ask me any AI questions, anything that you have in mind. I'd love to try and answer. I don't claim to be an AI expert, but I'll try my best. Let's move this a little bit over here. Trying to implement Java and AI for my trading business. Can you please suggest me or help with guidance? Depends on what you want to do with AI. There are so many things you can do, and the problem is always the use case. It's not uncommon to see, oh, there we go, I see the chat coming in now. Okay, cool. Let me move this back over here then. This is my first time trying out this widget, and boy, it's so small. I'm going to try and fix this as people come in. A lot of the AI stuff is really got to do with what use case you have, what you want to do with AI. So there are some interesting ways you can explore this. So let me fix this chat and I'll address your question. All right. I want to see if I can increase. All right. 1280 divided by 2 is 640. Okay. I'm bad at math. And 360. Let us see if this works. Is this any better? Oops. I don't know if this is any better. We'll see. Okay, so I see some chat coming in. So this is actually a good sign. This is a good sign. Okay. Thank you, folks, for joining in. This has been a while, so I'm excited that we are doing an AMA after a long time. All right. So there are a bunch of questions coming in already, which is great. But there is a link in the description which lets you write a question and it lets other people vote on it, so that we're not addressing the same questions again and again. If you have a question, please go to that link. There is a link in the description of this thing, and there is one question on that thing which says, "Have you worked on anything AI on the job?" I can answer that question if you folks are interested, if you want to vote on it. If not, just Just ask any other questions you have over there, or if you see a question that you find interesting, just vote on that question there, right? We'll try and address as many questions as we can. Again, a bit of a disclaimer. I'm not an AI expert by any means. I can answer from the perspective of a Java developer who has been trying to get into AI, as a lot of us have. I'm sure a lot of Java developers are kind of going through that same journey now, right? We're kind of we've been asked to get into AI and see how AI can solve some of our problems. So, as somebody who is going through that same journey, I'd love to answer questions from my perspective. And if somebody is a little bit behind on that journey from where I am, you can learn from it. If you're ahead of the journey compared to where I am, maybe you can teach me things that I don't know. So we will see. All right. So to answer this specific question, implement AI for trading business. My question is, why do you want to use AI, right? What is the use case that you're trying to solve? I'd be curious to learn about that. How do you get started with AI? Loaded question. Depends on what you want to do with AI. Do you want to improve your developer experience with AI? Do you want to code faster? In which case, there are things that you can do today, like using GitHub Copilot, using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever else with the right prompts to improve your developer experience. If the question is, how do I use it to enhance and build a better application? There are a whole lot of different ways. That requires a little more knowledge. That requires a little bit more of learning what are the components involved in AI. In this stream, I'm going to address a few of those actually. So we will look at a little bit of some concepts that you need to learn with AI, and then maybe I can have follow-up streams where I get into like individual concepts and explain it to you folks so that you understand it. There is a Code With Me series, a Code With Me project that I'm going to announce tomorrow. Okay, it's a free project. It's a free tutorial that builds a Spring, React, and AI project. It's a full stack application. Now, the definition of full stack has changed. It's not just backend and front end. It is backend and front end and AI. I don't know where AI fits in: front, back, horizontal, side, up, down. I don't know, but that's the new full stack now, right? Introducing AI into the application to add capabilities. We're going to do that. I'm going to announce a project tomorrow, and that can be a great place to start looking at AI. So definitely check that out. Are we forced to take AI route because everyone in the industry wants to stay ahead of the other? Yeah, that is true in a way, because there's a lot of FOMO happening in the industry right now. People don't want to miss out on AI. So people are like, everybody else is using AI, so we should use AI too. I get that, and it makes sense that people are doing it. But I also feel like it's some of it is buzzwordy, right? The same thing happened with crypto in the beginning, right? Everybody wanted to do crypto because crypto was the thing. Blockchain and NFTs, those were like the buzzwords of the time. So what ends up happening over time is the people who just get on the bandwagon because they are, like you said, forced to take that route because everybody else is doing it, they usually tend to fall off, because at the end of the day in our industry, what works is what drives the bottom line. And if what you're doing isn't driving the bottom line, people are just going to give up and move to something else. However, if you're getting into the AI route because you see value there, then those are the people who tend to stick around. So this is happening. I think you're right that it is happening today, with people kind of saying, yeah, I want to do this, I want to do this. But it's not going to last long is what I think. How can I use Gen AI or AI in my Spring Boot application? This is a great question, and I do plan to address it. Come to the stream tomorrow. Okay, I'm announcing an application which is basically a Tinder AI application, right? Come to the live stream tomorrow where I'm going to announce it, and I'm going to, release the video as well. It's going to be like a 5-hour long video where we build a full stack application that uses AI. Okay. The thing about AI is that it allows us to do different things. You don't usually say, okay, I'm going to take a traditional, Spring application or a React application and stick AI to it. Now, what you do is you kind of look for other things that your application can do, right? The AI in your application lets you do different things. So that's what I would suggest. Start thinking, okay, what is something different that I can do in my Spring Boot application if AI was involved? Okay, that would be a good place to start. And you can use something like Spring AI as a starting point, which is what I use in the Code With Me series tomorrow as well, right? Tomorrow, just tune in around this time, okay? You can go to my channel and take a look at what I'm going to announce there. Hope you're doing well. We met over a web call. Can we talk about Spring AI and Gen AI implications on design-driven development? I'm not sure what you mean by implications on design-driven development. Do you mean domain-driven development? I'm not quite sure. Please clarify that. Is prompt engineering simply efficiently talking to AI, or it has a different approach? So prompt engineering, in my opinion, is a way for you to teach the AI. It's not even talking to the AI. I think it's teaching the AI. So I think as people use AI more and more, the people who are good at communicating a point, even to a human, right? If you're talking to somebody and let's say they don't understand a certain thing, for you to realize, okay, this person doesn't understand that, this is a vital piece of information that I need to give at this particular point in the conversation. Basic communication skills, right? Basic conversation skills. People who have that tend to write better prompts, in my opinion. So having that empathy, thinking, okay, when I'm telling the AI to do something, what are some things that the AI doesn't know that if I give it would help it do a better job, right? That kind of thinking is what helps prompt engineering. At the end of the day, it just comes to how well you communicate. I think that's all prompt engineering is. There are many technologies in AI. What do you suggest for people learning basic algorithms? Regression time series question is where to apply, and for that, understanding the data and fitting the model. You're talking about learning AI algorithms, which may not be necessary. Okay, so there are two things to think about when you're learning about AI. Okay, there are two different aspects to AI learning itself. The first aspect is how can you use AI to make your application better, right? You're an application developer who is using AI to add a new dimension to your app. Okay, so in that sense, you're basically having your application make API calls to something like OpenAI or any of these other models, and basically enhance the capabilities of your app. If that's your use of AI, you don't need to do any of this. You don't need to know a regression time series. I honestly don't know what regression time series is, right? You don't need to know that. You don't need to know how an AI is trained. What you need to know is how to use inference effectively, right? How can you ask the AI to do something and have it do that? And how can you integrate that with the rest of your application? That is the key, okay? So that is what I would suggest you do. If you are a Java developer and getting into AI, I would say focus on the inference piece. This stuff is if you are being like a data scientist, or if you're getting into the field of training models and doing research and all that stuff, right? That's a whole different area. That's where these algorithms are going to come into the picture. Otherwise, as far as you're doing inference, I don't think you need to do any of that stuff. Thank you for making wonderful tutorials. I had a question. How can AI help Java developers excel in their careers? Or is it going to take jobs as well. All right, so I knew this question was going to come. I'm glad that it came early enough. I'm going to address this. So there are some questions that I have identified. Let me quickly address those and then maybe go from there, all right? I don't know, the previous person who asked about impact on design-driven development, I don't know if this is what you're talking about, impact on application design. Is that what you mean? What is going to happen to, wait, hang on a second, I don't know what happened to this thing. Wait a minute. Sorry about that. As you can tell, I have a green screen here and this thing is moving off on the edge. All right, there we go, that's better. Okay, impact on application design. If that's what you're asking, I'm going to get to your question, Shubham. The impact on application design is interesting because as a developer of Java applications, you're looking at AI as yet another service. Okay, AI as a service, especially when you think about like, okay, you're building a microservice architecture and you want to introduce AI into the picture. How do you do it? All right, there are a few things that you can do. First is, let me get rid of this first. I'll get back to your question, Shubham. There are a few things that you can do to integrate AI into your microservice architecture. The first thing is using AI as a service, right? We have microservices. An application is a bunch of different services that work together to produce the final result, right? So far, pre-AI, everything that we've built is kind of like a deterministic imperative service. What do I mean by that? Imperative means you're telling it exactly what you need to do, right? What are the steps that the service needs to do? Business rules, business logic, you write that down. The service is going to do exactly that and it's going to give you an output, right? It is also deterministic in the sense that given the same inputs, you're going to get the same outputs, right? That's basically the premise of any coding that we've done pre-AI, right? You give it inputs, does the business logic returns the output, right? Let's say, for example, you had to, do fraud detection, right? You're in a banking sector or a financial sector and you want to do fraud detection. What you do is you look at the data of transactions and you have certain business rules to say, okay, if this thing happens and this thing happens, then it's a fraud. If this thing happens but this doesn't happen, it's not a fraud, right? Imperative business rules. Now, let's say you go like, okay, now let's see if I can introduce AI into the picture. Now, what would you do? Let's say there are certain rules that are a little bit fuzzy, okay? So, for example, if somebody makes 10 transactions at once, then, and from new vendors, then maybe it's a credit card fraud, right? I'm giving you a random example. Well, you can say, well, if it is imperative code, you would say if the number of transactions is greater than 10 or greater than or equal to 10, flag it as a fraud, okay? However, let's say you bring in AI and say, I'm not going to have imperative logic like this. I'm going to have the AI make a judgment on the fly, right? Instead of doing time windows and saying, okay, in the last 3 days, there were 10 transactions. No, you're not going to do the rules. Let's say you tell to the AI, let's say there's a prompt which says, here are the last 3 days of transactions, right? Identify odd patterns. If you feel that something is odd, then flag it as a potential fraud, right? And look for repeated transactions. Look for new transactions which haven't happened. So what you're doing is you're not writing the code for this. You're telling AI as if you're telling like a team member, right, or a colleague and say, okay, write the code for it. You're feeding that into the prompt. Now, your service, which formerly would have run through the imperative logic is now using the prompt to figure out on its own using AI, right? In that sense, your microservice architecture hasn't changed, right? Your architecture is still the same. The one service which was doing imperative code is now using AI. It's prompting AI, giving it the data, and whatever the AI returns, it's going to take that result and convert it into a data structure that the service needs to return back, right? Let's say the service is a fraud detection service. At the end, it returns maybe a Boolean or maybe a data structure which has a Boolean and a reason or whatever else, right? So you're having the AI process the input, return the output, and you're going to take the output, convert it into a proper structure, and return it back. So this is a one way in which you have integrated AI into an existing microservice architecture, right? AI as a service. A common way to do this is basically by having APIs, right? So you have microservices calling different APIs. You can have a certain API which is AI powered, while certain other APIs are not AI powered, and they can kind of mix and match together. This is useful not just for services, but also for event-driven architecture, right? Let me give you an example. Give me a second. This thing is acting up. Sorry. All right. So imagine you have event-driven architecture where, let's say the fraud detection example that I gave you. Let's say instead of it being a service that gets pinged and it returns a response, let's say it's an event processing system, right? Events are coming in, transactions are coming in, and then there is an event-driven service which basically looks at the transaction and says, is this something a fraud or not? Now imagine that piece is now AI-driven. Okay, now that goes to an AI service, and again, it's making an API call. Okay, imagine an API call to OpenAI or any of the other models, right? It takes that data, creates that context, creates the prompt, sends it off to AI. AI does its job, returns back, not a paragraph of text, but some structured data that the service later parses and then returns back, right? Now we have event-driven systems with AI integrated. So again, the impact is not so much at a high level with AI, at least so far. The impact is once you have all your systems and you have all these different services, you go, okay, which of these services can work a little bit better with AI? Which of these services I can switch away from imperative step-by-step, do this, then do this, then do this logic, to a prompt-driven approach where you're saying you give a rough idea of things to the AI and have it figure out, right? So you basically take this whole, microservice architecture, any of these designs, pick portions of it and have it be AI powered. Okay, that seems to be the trend in which the industry is going today. Okay, it's nothing major has been overwhelmingly ramped up. It's just these small pieces which are getting added in the process, right? The other thing also is the sidecar pattern. All right, so let me switch over to the microservice architecture slide. So, are you folks familiar with the sidecar pattern? Basically, the sidecar pattern says you have a service, you have something that the service does, which is kind of a little adjacent to it. It is related to your main service, but it is not. You don't want it coupled to it. Okay, think of it like a sidecar, right? You have a bike and then there is a sidecar that's attached to the bike. So this is a service that attaches itself to the service, kind of sits next to it, but the code base isn't bundled together. You can deploy them separately and all that, right? So one way to think of AI integrated into your microservice architecture is to take a service, and let's say you want to make it AI enabled. You add a sidecar to it, and that service talks to that sidecar. Right? So basically what happens is you can bring in and out AI and not have it affect your main service. Okay, this is another thing that people tend to do now. You have the AI capabilities kind of delegated to the sidecar and have it affect the service without basically coupling it inside, right? It helps them to kind of add AI capabilities in and out. So this is another thing that's happening. And a lot of different existing patterns work with AI as well. So API gateways, right? What does an API gateway do today? It allows requests to come in, and then it kind of redirects to a load balancer. Imagine an API gateway load balancer combo working to choose an API model, an AI model, right? You can say, okay, a request comes in. Well, this particular request has to go to GPT-4. This particular request has to go to GPT 3.5 or Claude or whatever else, right? A load balancer, the same pattern that we've been using so far, now works to redirect to different AI models. So again, it's not like the way in which AI is integrated to our backend systems right now is not super groundbreaking. It's not revolutionizing the way we do things. It's just adding that extra capability. Goes back again to that imperative versus kind of fuzzy instructions, right? Wherever you can do that, just plop that into your existing architecture, right? Okay, so this one, I'm going to address this question because I'm sorry, I took a little bit of a detour. But this one is, I was very sure, this question would come up, which is, will my job be obsolete? What's going to happen to my job, right? What I've told you just now should give you some comfort that your job is not going to be obsolete, right? The way AI is getting integrated into large backend systems is as an extension, as an addition to what it's already doing, okay? You're bringing a new dimension rather than taking away what you already did and then replacing it with AI, right? It's adding a new capability. So knowing how to add that capability would make sure that you're going to excel in your job, because that is going to happen more and more. Learning how to identify AI use cases and saying, okay, this is a place where AI can be introduced, right? That makes sure that you're going to do your job, but with the power of AI. It's a cliche at this point that says, like, a person, your job is not going to be replaced by AI. Your job is going to be replaced by a person who works with AI, right? So similarly, your system is not going to be replaced by AI. Your system is going to be replaced by a system which works with AI. So learning how to create systems that work with AI is going to make sure that you are going to ensure that you continue to add value. Another thing that I made a note of a couple of points that came to my mind, which is about application system design, right? Application system design is still necessary, even with the introduction of AI, because of all the things that I talked about, right? The AI kind of fits into our existing design paradigms. We have a certain mechanism of delivering applications today, right? We either do, we have a web application, right? You have a thing that loads in the browser, makes API calls to the backend, and returns a response and shows something in HTML. Or you have, phone applications, iOS, Android apps, where you have an app on your phone, which again makes an API call, gets a response, and displays it. So the kind of like the vehicle of delivering these experiences hasn't changed. It is still a server, a front end. That part hasn't changed. What has changed, what will change perhaps, is the AI dimension that all these different things along that pipeline will have. So as long as you can successfully add that, we will still need developers who can build the front end and build the back end, because how else are you going to deliver these experiences to the user, right? Think about it. I mean, you need web developers, you need APIs for that thing to happen. Whatever crazy thing the AI does, how do you get that AI thing to the user, to apps, to web applications? You need same reliable systems which are scalable and all that. So as a Java backend developer, your job is probably not going to go anywhere. Another point that I want to make about our developers' jobs going to get obsolete is, lately there has been an interesting development about AI and how AI is used in applications. It's no longer you have a problem, you give it to AI and have it solve it. Now, what's happening now is you have a problem, you break it down into small things, which then go to individual AI agents. Okay, agents is like the next big thing in the AI space. I've been playing around with agents myself, and it is super powerful. Basically, the way it works is you have a certain big problem that needs to be solved, right? And you don't know how to solve it. What you do is you have these small pieces of code which are driven by AI, but it also has the ability to do certain things. It has the ability to run a shell command. It has the ability to open a file. It has the ability to go call online, do a Google search or a web search. So what you do is build these agents, and you give it prompts and you tell it what to do, and then these agents communicate with each other and together figure out how to solve a problem. Okay? When you have agents like this, you can't just let it loose and have it do things, right? You need code that controls these agents. So now what's happening is, in order to deliver truly valuable AI applications, you need to actually write code that coordinates all these agents. So even if you're not a backend developer and you are a programmer, for the foreseeable future, if you're not going to be writing imperative code, you're going to be writing AI code, you're going to be writing AI agents, which is actually a lot of code, right? The thing that the AI agent itself does is powered by AI, but the orchestration, the coordination of all those agents is a lot of code. The tooling that those agents need to do is a lot of code. So I don't think the programming job is going to be obsolete in any time in the near future, right? Far future, who knows what's going to happen, but in the near future, I don't think that's going to happen. All right. Very long answer, but I was prepared for it because I knew this question would come. Do you think IntelliJ versus VS Code plugins could do a lot of migration things, like converting a Node.js backend API call to Java, etc.? I think yes. I think AI has a lot of potential in the developer experience. Okay, right now the way to interface with a machine is using code, right? We write code and we kind of tell it what to do by breaking things down. That language, that conversion happens in our mind right now, right? We have a thought, we have an idea of what the machine needs to do. We do the conversion and we write the code that basically the machine just takes and executes, right? With AI into the picture, that spectrum of, okay, you have a thought and then you have to convert it into the actual code, and this is where you're actually typing the code. This spectrum doesn't have to go all the way to the code, right? It can stop somewhere over here and have the AI do that final piece. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to convert your thoughts entirely to code. You can get it to a certain point where the AI can take it. Now, what is that certain point? The certain point can be breaking down the problem into smaller steps and having the AI say, okay, go write the code for this step. Okay, you're still controlling the first part, but then you're letting the AI do the final part. The AI is no way as powerful yet to do the whole thing. Otherwise, we would all be out of a job right now. People are still working, which means that it's not gone all the way there. And I don't think it's going to go in the near future, like I said. This portion can be new code or it can be existing code, right? Like you said, you can say, okay, here is an existing piece of code written in a different language. Can you go ahead and convert it? All right. Now, this can be effective when you have a systematic way of testing the results. Okay, let's say you're building an API and you go, okay, I want to convert this Node.js API to a Java API or Java Spring Boot API, right? It can be done using OpenAI. But once it does it, how do you know it's done a good job? Are you going to go click deploy and send it to production? No, you're not going to do it, right? What do you need? You need testing, right? As long as the results of the AI can be tested by systematic tests, non-AI testing, because if AI does the testing again, now we again have a problem. That could be hallucinating and you could have a risk and fraud. As long as you have a systematic way to test and ensure that the results of the AI is successful, there is a huge use case for adding AI into the developer workflow, like you said, and there is a lot of potential there. So in that context, yes, this is definitely possible. Should we think of career in AI, in software engineer, as AI trend is rapidly progressing? I think there's going to be a lot of need for developers because AI is going to democratize the way applications are built. It's a tricky question because here's the problem that's happened, right? Over the last maybe 5-6 years, there was this trend about people have to learn to code, right? Teach people to code. We need a lot of developers. You folks have heard of this, right? About 5 years ago, there was this, okay, there's a huge shortage in the industry. People need to code, okay? And a lot of people did that, right? They went to kids and taught kids how to code. They went to, everywhere. It was a very common thing. And what ended up happening was learning how to code became an easy way to get a professional career, right? People who don't have a formal education, right? They don't have good education. They're in the job market. They don't know what to do. How do you get a professional career? Well, learning to code seems to be an easy way, right? So a lot of that happened before AI. And now what's happening is people are looking at the current trends with, okay, AI is going to take away all the jobs. And now it's not just the people who wanted a quick buck, even serious people who are like, computer science, they've studied computer science, they are passionate about building applications. They want to do things the right way rather than just make quick, go to a boot camp and earn money. Even those people are getting scared. So it's kind of gone the other way around. I think the sweet spot is exactly what it was before people said, everybody can learn to code. I think the sweet spot is if you are interested in being serious about this, because this is not easy, right? Being a software developer is not an easy job. It's not an easy way to make money, right? It's not about you going to boot camp and then you suddenly have 6 figures, 7 figures income, right? It is about dedicating yourself to the craft just like any other profession, right? As long as you're passionate about it and you're not there to make a quick buck, you should consider a career in the software industry, right? These jobs are not going away. If your original intent was, I don't know what to do, this seems to be cool, right? I can just take a boot camp and I don't have to learn anything. I don't have to invest a lot of effort. I'm just going to coast through. Those people shouldn't get into the industry. I think this AI has kind of set the balance to where it should be, and I think that would be the way I would recommend, right? If you're in it as a serious profession, go for it. If you're in it just to attend a 2-month boot camp and coast, then don't. And this has got I think this is a good benchmark to consider for any profession, to be honest. I'm going to change the role from Java developer to Gen AI PO. What's the roadmap? What is PO? Is it product owner? Gen AI PO, product owner. I think if it is product owner, then I'm assuming you're talking about a product owner for a Gen AI company like OpenAI or Claude. That is, I don't think that has a lot of scope. I think usages of AI has a lot of scope, but being actively involved in the field of AI and developing it, honestly, I don't know if it has scope. I'm probably the wrong person to talk about it. Do you think Spring AI will bridge the gap between Java developers and AI? By the way, Spring AI is a new framework from Spring. Yes, Spring AI will bridge the gap. And if you didn't catch what I said earlier, visit the channel, visit the live stream tomorrow, where I'm going to be doing a project announcement where we are going to build a Spring Boot application, a full stack Spring Boot application, Spring Boot, React, and Gen AI, right? We're going to build a Tinder clone, right? A dating app, Tinder clone, where you have profiles that you can match with and you can actually have conversations with them. You can have conversations with profile that you match with without any other human being involved, right? It's all driven by Gen AI, and I'm super excited. This took a lot of time to make, but I'm super excited about it. come to the live stream tomorrow where I'm going to be making that announcement. And yes, Spring AI is, in my opinion, I kind of researched that a little bit. Spring AI is not final yet, I think. It's still being actively worked on, but it is an amazing way to work with AI, generative AI technologies. So, come to the live stream tomorrow. We'll go look at the application that we're going to build, and I'm going to release the video as well, which is like a 5-hour long video where we're going to build the whole Tinder AI clone from the scratch, right? Check that out. How to start AI learning path for developers. I don't know, to be honest. I was talking to Sinan Ozdemir. I have there was a recent podcast episode where I asked him the same question, because it's such an evolving space that things keep changing all the time. Papers keep being written all the time and published all the time, and people are working on this a lot, and a lot of changes are happening. So starting is always tricky, but I would say start with just building something with AI, right? You don't have to be a data scientist. You don't have to train models. Learn how to use inference, right? Learn how to build applications which add the AI dimension to it. I think that would be a great place to start, and then figure out things along the way. Figure out what inference is. If we have time today, and if I haven't completely run out of energy, I will go through a few concepts and explain to you what they are, right? But just learn those small concepts and learn how to integrate AI into your app, and just build an app with AI integrated, right? Actually start with the Code With Me project that I'm going to release. I know I'm plugging it a lot, but it's contextual, right? It is very much aligned with what you're doing. Maybe start there, right? We haven't done any AI work. Start with that Code With Me project and build the Tinder AI app with me, and you will learn a whole lot along the way. You'll learn how to build a Spring Boot app that connects to AI, makes OpenAI calls, gets the response. You'll learn how to kind of integrate that with an API response that goes to React. You'll kind of learn the whole stack. So maybe start there and see if anything strikes your fancy, and then you can dive into that a little bit more. I want to analyze the stock data and make right decisions based on NSE data. As a Java developer since 16 years, I like to proceed with Java and AI. Well, I wish you good luck. It is not easy to have AI do financial decisions, because it gets it wrong a lot. Okay, AI is not a magical fortune teller which will tell you exactly what's going to happen in the future, right? If you're looking at stock market data, it's basically a randomized source of whether a particular stock goes up or down. It's basically I think it's called random walk or something like that. At any given point, it can go up or go down with equal probability, right? And AI is prone to telling answers that it doesn't know for sure. So you have somebody who thinks he's an expert and just tells out random answers when they don't have knowledge. You don't want to listen to that person to make financial advice, right? So I wish you good luck, but please be careful, right? It's not, I don't think it's been successfully done. If you're just doing it as a hobby, sure, set aside a small amount of money and play with it. But I don't think it is ready for prime time yet. When can we join tomorrow's live session? Go to the channel. I hope you folks have subscribed to my channel. Ring the bell and all that good stuff. Go to my channel. There is a live stream that I've announced on the channel for tomorrow, where we're going to create a Tinder AI clone. So just ring the bell or whatever, right? It's around the same time tomorrow. Please come up with some interesting videos of Spring with AI through Hugging Face LLM models. I actually have, I use two ways of calling AI, right? One is something called, of course, Spring AI and OpenAI. The second is something called Ollama. Ollama is a software which lets you download and run open source models locally on your machine. Okay, maybe I can show you this tomorrow. I can show you how you can download Ollama, run it on your machine, and run inference on your machine. Right? This is going to be a necessary step for the Code With Me project that I'm going to talk about tomorrow. So it is possible to just use an adapter for open source models and have Spring AI connect with them. So for example, Spring AI has a separate service to connect to Ollama, which is the service which runs open source models locally. So get Ollama, create a Spring Boot project with Spring AI and say, hey, Spring AI, connect to Ollama, right? That's a way in which you can have this connect and get, integrate AI. So the answer to this is yes. Watch the space tomorrow. Okay, tune in tomorrow. Is it for? It's going to be for everyone. I'm going to make it for free. It's for everyone, not just for members. I'm going to provide some special bonuses for members, but it is free for everyone. It's an exciting project, and I want everybody to make use of it. What's your approach for learning AI about it as a beginner? Tutorials, books, or something else? Tutorials, yes, and playing around with it is the way I learned. Honestly, the way I learned was to download open source models on my machine and just mess around with it with the craziest things. Okay, for example, I'm a big fan of philosophy, right? I have this a bunch of software which does, like, it pretends to be a certain person, a historic person or a philosopher or something like that, right? So what I did was I downloaded an open source model and had that LLM pretend to be a philosopher, right? I created a prompt, I made a custom prompt, and I had conversations with that philosopher. It was fascinating. It worked sometime, it didn't work sometime. But just in that process of playing around with it, I learned what tokenization means. I learned what the context size is. I learned what how prompting affects things. I learned about, okay, there is something called a system message. There is something called an assistant message. So these are concepts that you just learn while you play around. Is that the best way to do it? I don't know. That's the way I did it. Because the problem also is that with the AI space, it's not very mature right now. There isn't like a very organized, systematic way of, okay, learn this, then learn this, then learn this, right? It's not there yet, because if somebody were to release that, it's going to change in a week, right? Something else is going to come up and they have to do this all over again. So I think the best way to do it right now is to take it in small pieces and play around with things, right? Play around with AI, try to do things that and see what the result is, and in the process have a curious mind and see, okay, why does this work? How does this work? Like, what happens if I do this, and so on, right? It is always helpful to have a use case, have a good use case, and then you can definitely have that use case drive you to explore and learn more. As long as you do that, you should be fine. You can that will guide you about where to learn. Solution like IoT in healthcare with AI, medical science, and financial risk modeling now create API around it. I don't understand what the question is. Product owner design, transform that in Swagger and then code. Can we use the models? You might have to clarify that, Sudeep. I don't understand the question. Will GitHub Copilot plugins taking care of a lot of refactoring, generating test cases, also explain selected code? Do you think the industry won't need experienced developers to code? I think we will still need experienced developers to code. It's just that the process of coding is going to be AI assisted. We haven't reached a point where an AI can replace human effort. There's a lot of buzz with AI, okay? And there's a lot of buzz with, I think we have built as, with the internet community, with all of the technologies, with social media and all that stuff, we have built a way of communication that incentivizes sensationalism, right? We are seeing this in a whole lot of places. We are seeing this in news channels, right? Sensationalism sells. Sensationalism is what reaches people, right? We've seen that in even in academic areas, right? You don't want boring stuff anymore. You want the sensational stuff. And this is happening even in our industries, right? This is what sensationalism sells. So there was this product which said, okay, now we have an AI developer. Just give this AI developer the use case and it can go make changes to files and do a whole lot of stuff. And there was like a private version, then there was an open source version. These people are doing this in order to further their objectives, right? For example, these companies need funding, right? Are they going to say, well, I have an AI developer that solves 2% of the cases that I throw at it, and the rest requires this much funding to do, right? They're not going to say that. They're going to say, here is the next big thing, and it's going to dramatically change everything else, right? Sensationalism is the norm now. If this is the norm, then you can imagine anything that says, we're just going to make a small incremental change to the developer experience is going to get lost in the noise. However, if somebody says developers are obsolete, we have the AI taking over, that's what sticks out, right? So there is a lot of stuff that needs to happen in the AI space for AI to be able to successfully take over a developer's job beyond just being that helpful assistant, right? It's not about, okay, we are halfway there, there is the other half to complete. No, it is almost exponential, and there's a lot that needs to happen to get there. We are nowhere there yet. If you're saying, okay, it could possibly happen, that could possibly happen if you apply it to other things in your life, you're not going to sleep at night, right? A lot of things could possibly happen, but we don't consider that, right? The same way, this is not, a threat to, an existential threat to experienced developers or to developers anymore. If at all it is, I would say it's a bit of an existential threat to new developers, right? Developers who are basically the typical code monkeys they don't know much. They're just like, okay, give me a small task and I'm going to do it. If that's your idea of development and that's all you do, then maybe your job could be replaced. But if you're an experienced developer, you're bringing in more of your expertise and kind of the ability to orchestrate multiple things. While the AI just does a small thing, your job is going to be safe, my friend. I don't see that going anywhere. I meant with AI, would industry choose 5 to 8 years experienced developers over 10 years experienced developers? I don't know. I think it would choose. I think the industry is always going to make a choice of the best developer for the least salary possible, right? That's basically commerce, right? That's economics. So I don't know. It's hard to answer this. If you're a good developer and you can justify the salary that you get, I don't think it matters. So it's all about how good of a developer you are. I don't know. It's a little hard to answer that because I'm just guessing at this time. But the thing that I know for a fact is that as long as you're a good developer and you're like the best among the rest, then I don't see a problem. I don't see people choosing a less experienced developer if they're significantly worse. Why worry about something you have no influence over? Well, yeah, it's that is true. And also, why worry over something that has been intentionally drummed up and sensationalized for a very different purpose, right? These news items which says, okay, brand new AI which is dramatically better and it can beat humans in these 10 different things, right? Those things have a very different motive and they're doing it for very obvious reasons, right? They want to stand out from the noise, and the only way they can stand out is by shouting higher and louder, right? You need to detect that and acknowledge that. As long as you say, okay, these people are not, they may not always be authentic and honest, and do your due diligence and say, okay, well, there's a news item which says here is a thing that can replace developers. Well, can it really? Let me go check it out, right? Do your due diligence and see if it is really true. If it were true, I'm telling you, this would have already happened, right? There are people way ahead of the curve with implementing AI. A lot of people are looking into this. The fact that developers are still here means that they haven't been able to successfully do it. In fact, there was this kind of a correlation about, okay, there are a lot of layoffs happening. Is it because AI has already taken our jobs? Again, if you look at the data, you will see that the current strength of software developers, I don't have the source for it, but I'm just going to tell you based on what I remember, right? There was, if you look at the curve, there was a certain amount of job openings. With the COVID and the return to office and all that stuff, the job openings increased, and then it came down, and now it is exactly the same as it was before. It hasn't gone down. So I don't see a result of AI in the process. It was more of the COVID boom and bust, and we're back to where we were before. So yeah, I would say let's not worry about it for now. I've been following Java Brains back from 2012, where I gained clarity in learning Hibernate and Spring. Well, thank you so much. You're close to where I started. I think I started around 2011. So very close to where I started. Spring RAG, what is that and where to use it? RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. Okay, I probably need to make another session where I explain RAG to you folks. It's a fascinating concept. So LLMs don't have memory. Okay, they don't remember things. They have a model of the universe from their training, right? You train a language model, it forms a picture of the universe based on its training. But if you go to an LLM and say, hey, my name is Krish, nice to meet you, and then you go back the next day, start a new conversation, like, do you remember what my name is? It obviously doesn't know, right? LLM interactions are essentially stateless. You have a way to kind of fake state, which is basically send the whole conversation each time, which is what ChatGPT does. Okay, you talk to you ask ChatGPT a question, it returns a response. You ask it a following question. You know what that UI does? And the backend services, you know what they do? It takes that whole conversation, sends it, and then it gets a response back with the next item. Okay, the whole conversation is being sent every time. You can almost think of it as stateless services. As Java developers, we are familiar with stateless services. It's something that does not maintain state. Okay, so it's fine. You can send all the conversations every time, but let's say you have a bunch of documents that you want to have the LLM refer to figure out the answer. What are your options? Well, one option is you can train that LLM with these documents. You can say, okay, here is the state, here is the language model which is trained with the state of the world. It's crawled the web, it has looked at every web page, whatever else, right? It has the model of the world, it knows things. But now here is your document which the LLM has not been trained on. It doesn't know what's in your document, okay? You want it to answer based on what is in your document. Well, you can say, okay, I'm going to train this model with this document, in which case it is going to learn about that. If there is a new document, I'm going to train the model based on this, it's going to learn about that. But that can be tedious, right? What if you just need it for one use case? You have a PDF and you want to ask the LLM to say, okay, give me some information, answer this question about this, something in this PDF, and then you're never going to touch that PDF again. It seems like a waste to train the model on this PDF, right? However, one option is, okay, you can send that whole PDF with your question, which is fine, which is what stateless means, right? Okay, you can say, hey, LLM, here's the PDF, here's my question, now tell me the answer. That's possible if the PDF is small enough. If the PDF is big, you run into another problem. What is the problem? The problem is context size. An LLM has a certain context size. It can only remember certain things as a part of the conversation. You're sending something, the LLM returns something back. The sum of those two, the sum of your input prompt with all the conversation, all that stuff, and the sum of the response together is called the context size. And every LLM has a certain context size. You cannot go beyond that. If you go beyond that, the LLM is going to error out. OpenAI or any of these other LLMs are going to error out. So if the PDF is small, you can send it. It fits the context size. Great. The LLM is going to look at that PDF and give you the answer. But if the PDF is larger than the context size, well, there's no way to do it, right? Well, one way to do it is to somehow find a good related portion of that document and send only a snippet of that document to the LLM and say, okay, here is the thing, now generate a response. Okay, it's going to fetch a portion of the document somehow magically, and I can explain that. Maybe I'll set up a follow-up session where I may explain how it knows exactly what to get, right? It somehow figures out, okay, here are 3 sections from this document which are related to what the user is asking, so it's going to pick those 3 sections and send it to the prompt. You ask another question, it's going to go, okay, here are these 4 sections which are closely related to this particular question. It's going to fetch that, put it into the prompt and send it. So you're not sending the whole PDF now. So you don't have the risk of exceeding the context size, but you're also sending the thing that's necessary to answer that question. So the LLM can hopefully answer it, right? This is retrieval augmented generation. You're asking it to generation, right? Generative AI. You're asking it to generate a response, but you're augmenting the generation with retrieval of things from the document. You're retrieving stuff and you're augmenting the generation with what you've retrieved. That is RAG, that's retrieval augmented generation. Spring RAG is a way to do retrieval augmented generation with Spring. Long answer to the question, but hopefully that was helpful. What all libraries are available in Java for AI? Also, should a 10-year experienced Java backend developer switch to AI, or what all technologies can learn other than Spring microservices to stay relevant? I kind of addressed that before, but the idea is you don't want to switch to AI because of the buzz. Okay, don't switch to AI. And I think all of the folks, I know people have asked me this in the previous live streams. You guys owe me thanks. I remember a lot of people during the time of the blockchain buzz, a lot of people asked me, should I switch from Java development to blockchain? Should I go blockchain? And I said no. All the people who have followed my advice and stuck to Java development and didn't make the mistake of going to blockchain, well, you can thank me. And I think the same advice applies here. Don't follow the buzz, right? Don't switch to being an AI engineer. Instead, think about how you can apply AI to the work that you're already doing, to the work as a Java backend developer. How can you enhance your work with AI, both in terms of writing the code and in terms of the application that you're going to build? How can you fit AI into your app so that your app can do better stuff? That's the thing you need to focus on. That's what's going to help you stay relevant. I have a super chat, by the way. Just thanks, longtime fan of your courses. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a fan. I'm glad that my courses are helpful. Whoa! I switched to super chat and then I lost my place in the chat. All right, give me a second. I'm going to scroll back to where I was. Just joined the live. I'm a subscriber, JavaBrains website. Great content, by the way. Thank you. Is there going to be any material on Spring AOP? I remember an old AOP course of yours years ago. I don't plan to make any new AOP courses because it isn't as widespread in use. The way AOP is used in Spring is now a lot behind the scenes. Okay, so for example, we use transactions a lot. Transactions is powered by AOP. A lot of annotations is powered by AOP. A lot of Spring Data stuff is powered by AOP. But it's not often that as a Spring developer, you use AOP to write code. Okay, it's often, I've spoken to a few people who almost consider it a bad design practice, because the way AOP works is it kind of weaves its code in without it being very clear what's happening, right? You can look at the code and you don't know why did this thing run? How did it come into the picture? You can figure that out only by looking at some other code which is somewhere else, which is what is doing the AOP wiring, right? So I've had discussions with a few people who go like, AOP is bad practice, we shouldn't do it. It makes code very hard to read. Debatable, but the general trend that I've seen is AOP use cases have reduced. There are not a lot of people using AOP today. Okay, so yeah, I don't plan to make a lot of content on AOP. I think that the content that I already have should still work in 2024. I cannot guarantee that, but I feel like it might still work. Non-tin to you too, my friend. What's your opinion on microservices versus monolith? Why everyone rushing to make their projects microservices even though one should evaluate it if it's really needed for the project? My opinion is exactly what you said. Don't rush to do microservices. Evaluate if it's really needed for your project. It comes with an overhead. Microservices come with a huge overhead, and the overhead is worth it only if you gain the benefit that the microservice gives you. Otherwise, for simple stuff, no microservices. For example, the project that we're going to do tomorrow, right? The Tinder AI project. It's a monolith, right? If you're a single developer, you probably need a monolith. You don't need a microservice. If you're a small team of developers, probably a monolith. So a lot of it depends on the team size. A lot of it depends on the scope of the project. If it's a simple project, you certainly don't need microservices. Microservices. There is a concept of a modulith. I don't know if you folks have heard of that. That's kind of in between a microservice and a monolith. I would also recommend you check that out. Spring modulith. Check that out. Any lightweight LLM to use in the front end that could answer basic questions about the project? There have been experiments about this. I think there was some experiments around using WebAssembly as well. There are some open source LLMs that are so small, like 3 billion parameter models, that fit into a 4 gigabyte memory space, right? And I read some joke somewhere about, there was up to a certain point, there was this trend of, JavaScript applications being so big and big and big that they needed a loading screen, right? You would load a React app where you would get bundles upon bundles of JavaScript stuff, and it would be so huge. I think we are at a point where you can deploy a decent LLM, which is about the same size as a React application, or perhaps even smaller than some React applications. So it is very much possible, and there have been some experiments. The question is really the use case. Like, what are you going to use it for? Wouldn't it be better to instead have the front end make an API call and use a slightly more powerful LLM model in the back end rather than have it do this inference in the front end, right? I don't know. There might be use cases, but I haven't really found a lot of use cases yet. But there have been experiments for sure. When can we join? I think I addressed that. Go to my channel. It should be a scheduled live stream. I'm a Java developer with 10 years of experience. I want to move in AI development. How do I start the journey? I have addressed this. If you haven't checked out the stream before, rewind or watch it later. Which other creators you recommend for coding insights and knowledge? I don't know, actually. To be honest, I don't watch YouTube for development tutorials anymore. I watch some YouTube channels for learning about AI, the AI developments. There are some really good channels. I don't remember the names right now, but I'll see if I can add a post. There are some creators who cover AI news in a good way. Because here's the thing about AI news, again, with the sensationalism stuff, a lot of creators just go on the hype train. A lot of creators do hype. I don't like hype. I don't do it myself, and I don't like other people doing it. So that really turns me off, and I don't tune into them. There are a few creators who have like a more practical and sensible mindset in which they report the news. I'll see if I can find the channels that I follow for AI news and share it with you. As far as creators for coding insights are concerned, I basically I watch a lot of DevOps talks, conference talks. I think are more valuable than individual creators, because I think it's valuable to hear from people who are doing this on the job. A lot of creators do YouTube creation as a full-time job. Okay, so it's hard to rely on them for coding insights if they are not coding in the first place. If all they're doing is making content, well, you're not giving me any industry experience, right? You're not giving me any insights that I would need because I'm going to go work in the industry. You're not helping me. That's one of the reasons why I didn't want to do YouTube as a full-time job as well. I wanted one foot in the industry because I want to get those insights. So follow people who are in the industry is what I would recommend. And beyond that, I don't have any specific advice. I'll see if I can find the AI news creators and post that. Will generative AI replace Java developers' jobs? I've already addressed that. Okay, this is addressed. I'm going slow, so I'm sorry. It's I'm taking my time and answering questions in detail, which is what I would expect you would want. So yeah. All right. Students need to explore other fields like electronics, mechanical, etc. to stay future proof. If you're a student, I don't know, is anything future proof? Is electronics future proof? How do you know? Maybe electronics is going to be replaced by AI as well. Is mechanical future proof? I don't know. Robots are coming in a big way. Once we solve the generative AI problem, guess where we're going to go? We're going to go to robotics. So what is future proof? The future cannot be guaranteed no matter what. I think the best thing you can do is pick a subject or a topic that you're passionate about, that you can imagine yourself working 8 hours a day. This is my advice to most students. Don't go chasing the big bucks, because soon what you consider as big bucks as a student will not be big bucks once you start earning those big bucks, right? We tend to normalize what money we have. So the glamour of earning is going to soon fade away. And what you have on a day-to-day basis is the job that you do 8 hours a day. Okay, so that's what stays. So go with what you're interested in. Go with what you're passionate about, right? If you are interested in electronics, if building electronic circuits is what makes you fulfilled, then sure, go for it. I feel like as long as there is an industry, there's always money to be made. There's always jobs there. So it's just about how you adapt to changes. Let's say you go to electronics. Well, the thing that you learn, I have no idea about electronics, okay? I have no idea how chips are made. The thing that you learn when you're a student, as an electronics student, I'm sure will be obsolete 5 years down the line. Okay, we're talking about Gen AI here. What about that thing being obsolete? That's going to be obsolete. Something is going to change and something new is going to come up over there. What are you going to do then? That's not future proof. You need to learn how to adapt to changes. You need to learn how to learn. So as long as you do that, it really doesn't matter which field you choose. Can we restart our career in Java after 2 to 3 years of career break? My friend has around 10 years of experience in Java. You can restart if you can justify it. If you go to an interview and you can perform at the same level as somebody who has been working, I don't think it matters a lot. Okay, if you're not able to do it in the same level and you blame it on your break, you say, okay, somebody, in the interview asks you a question and you say, well, I used to know this, but I don't know it now. I know it a little bit because of my break, but I'm going to do, you know what I mean? If you don't use that as a crutch in any way, if you don't let it affect your performance, it's unlikely that it's going to let it affect the decision. There are some companies for which it is a big deal. Okay, they don't like breaks. I have had people who are questioned about 2-month breaks, let alone 2 years. They're like, what were you doing in those 2 months? Well, we are humans. We lead our lives. We are not expected to work in this industry every day of our lives, right? We can take breaks. Some people don't like it. Well, for those companies, this is not going to work. But I don't think it's everybody. For the most part, as long as you don't let it affect you and your performance, it shouldn't affect the decision of the company who will hire you. What's the difference between the content in the YouTube channel and Java Brain subscription? It should pretty much be the same. If you have a choice, I would recommend going for the website because it has a better experience and you don't get distracted by all the YouTube videos that show up in the sidebar. But it should be the same. If anything, the website has content a little bit sooner than the YouTube channel because of various reasons. Some of them because of my personal way of doing things, some of them because of YouTube and the craziness that platform is. So given a choice, go for the website, but both of them should be more or less the same. Which book do you recommend every Java Spring Boot developer should have? I think I think there's one called Spring Start Here or Spring Start Quickly, which has gotten good reviews. It's been a while since I've read a Spring book. These days I just go for the manual. But I would recommend that. Spring Start Here or Start Quickly or something like that. It's a good starting point. But after that, you should just use the manual. What's the difference between Java and Kotlin? 2 different languages, 2 different ways of telling what you want the machine to do, but eventually compiles down to bytecode. Has LLMs awestruck you with creativity in design decisions and application development? No. What it has surprised me is in putting together 2 things that I wouldn't have put together. Okay? It is great in linking 2 different things which I wouldn't have thought about. So with that, I find it really, really useful. I have found it useful in teaching, right? For example, I need to teach a concept and I'm kind of doing some research. Nowadays, I look at Google, I look at, LLMs as well. And LLM sometimes links a completely different thing and says it's like that. I found, wow, this is great. I've never thought of these 2 concepts being together. So it has helped in that way. But in terms of application development, it's like a toddler right now, right? We feel happy when a toddler learns how to eat with a spoon for the first time, learns how to walk or ride a bike for the first time, go, hey, the little boy did it or the little girl did it. That's the place the LLM is in right now. It hasn't awestruck me in that sense. But with that lowered expectation of a toddler, you go Abe, not because the thing itself is impressive, but for your expectation of the thing, what it has done is impressive. In that sense, it's impressed me, but I don't think that's what you were asking. Java developer for 10 years, and now I'm exploring cloud and DevOps path. I'm sure the job will not be obsolete. Yes, you're right. DevOps will not be obsolete because, again, remember, we have a mechanism to deliver software value to users. The mechanism is a backend and a front end with mobile devices, web applications, backend systems, CI/CD. That mechanism hasn't changed, ladies and gentlemen. We still have to do this. AI or no AI, whatever comes up, we still have to go through all these processes to put the thing on the server, to go through the same processes to send that data, to send value, whatever that value is, to the user's machine. That part hasn't changed. Do you think that is going to change because of an LLM? The LLM is going to influence what goes down to the user, but how it goes down is still the same, right? Simple common sense. I mean, think about it. You'll realize that all these thoughts about like, oh, things are going to go away. Well, what can realistically go away with an LLM, right? What is the path you suggest to use AI effectively in dev and DevOps? With DevOps, it's interesting. There's a lot of work being done to kind of enhance every step of the way with DevOps, right? For example, log analysis. Right? Imagine using AI to identify what exactly went wrong from a huge log and then send that to the developer. All right, that's one way to do it. Let me switch this back to a proper slide. We are past the will my job be obsolete topic anyway. I didn't realize that thing was still there. So there are things that a typical CI/CD process would do that you can kind of offload to the LLM and have it do certain decisions. It is tricky though, because anything that you offload to the LLM has to come with some kind of a safety net, right? You need to be able to assess if the LLM has done a good job or not, right? Without that, you cannot just let it do its thing. You can have it assist a human and have that human be that safety net, which is what GitHub Copilot does, right? GitHub Copilot doesn't write code and check it into production. It tells you, and you are that safety net which says, okay, is this good or not good? And then you say, okay, now go to production. Now, if you were to add that to DevOps, what is that safety net like, right? Because DevOps is essentially a hands-off process, right? It's just running in the background. What is that safety net? Well, one safety net could be tests that are run. Let's say you're changing an environment and you want to check if that environment is fine. You can have the LLM change environments as long as you can do a ping, you can run a bunch of integration tests and make sure that the environment is fine. As long as you do that, sure, the LLM can take that part, right? So the LLM can do certain aspects of the whole job, the DevOps job, as long as there is that safety net, because essentially a lot of DevOps is hands-free. So you cannot have the human be a safety net that you would normally have in the development process. As in, what skill would be outdated and we need to learn and relearn? What skill would be outdated? I don't think any skill would be outdated. It's more about how you would apply your knowledge and AI into existing things, right? That's I think what would happen. All right. I don't see any other questions. Let me move to the website. Okay, there are a bunch of questions over here, so let me address that. Right. Is it mandatory to learn data structures and algorithms if you want to join LinkedIn? I think it's mandatory for any job right now. There was this crazy story that I heard from a friend who's like applying for a company that I'm not gonna name, but it is, people laugh at it, saying it's kind of like a joke of a company. And this person told me that that company was asking LeetCode hard questions, which just blew my mind, because it's like, usually the top companies, right? The top of the top companies, okay? You think about like, LeetCode hard wasn't that common maybe 5 years ago, right? Nowadays, it's become so common that you almost expect it. So I think it's got to do with the job market now rather than any specific company or somebody, because there's a lot of people in the market, and companies have their, they can pick from really talented people. And data structures and algorithms in general, I'm not talking about a specific company, in general has always been a filtering mechanism. It's a way for you to filter using skills that are kind of close to what you would normally do in your day-to-day work, even though it doesn't exactly match, but it's still okay because you have to filter somehow. So the more people in the job market, the stronger the filtering criteria should be. So in this job market, I would say just learn data structures and algorithms, just do LeetCode, because it's mandatory in general. Considering AI models are trained on public code, will their code be accepted by big tech and established companies, as these companies have code that is generally of higher quality? I think this is going to be a problem, and it will expose good engineers versus bad engineers. It will expose the bad engineers, is what I'm saying. If your code quality is not good enough, it doesn't matter if you copy pasted from ChatGPT or OpenAI, or you wrote that bad code yourself. No company would, at least today, no company allows an LLM to directly check in code and then push it to production, because like we talked about before, LLMs aren't there yet. So you still need a manual process, a manual review, where somebody looks at the code and goes, okay, change this line, the normal code review process. If your code review process doesn't clear and you get all these comments, it doesn't matter if the code was written by an LLM or not. Right? You have to fix it, and it is going to be reflective of you as a developer, because the code is with your name. Okay, so code is still attached to a human being. The human being is accountable for it at the end of the day. All right. Should we think of career in software engineer as AI trend is rapidly progressing? Yeah, I addressed that already. This should be similar to that. Yes, I think you should. If you're passionate about software engineering, yes, you should consider it. If you're saying, hey, there is so much demand for software, I don't really care about being a software engineer, but it seems like easy money, I'm just going to take a 3-month boot camp and get into it, then you should not consider, because that was never a good idea to begin with. It was, I would say, a temporary, momentary aberration in the whole job market, and that has been resolved now. If you take a 3-month boot camp and enter the industry, you're going to have a tough time, and that's what it should be. You want people who are good to get rewarded, and you want people who are not good to have an incentive to become good, and that's where it is right now. So as long as you're passionate about it and you're willing to work on yourself, you can enter the industry, and AI has got nothing to do with it. With GitHub Copilot plugins taking care of a lot of the code refactoring, generating test cases, and also explaining the selected code, do you think the industry wouldn't need more experienced resources to code? I think I addressed this one as well. So if you folks still have questions about that, please let me know. Have you worked on anything AI on the job? Yeah, we're doing something in my company, in my job, which requires AI, and that's where I talked about like the whole agentic system thing. Not just in I obviously can't reveal what I do at my work, But in general, what I've noticed, and from trends that I'm seeing from other companies that are using AI, agentic systems are becoming super popular, and that's something that maybe I might do a Code With Me series on that. You can do that with Spring AI. It's there, and I kind of figured that out while I was doing the Tinder AI project. Project reveal tomorrow, by the way. Tune in at this time on this channel. So you can build agents which are responsible for certain things, and you can create multiple agents and have them talk to each other. You can do all that in Java, not a single line of Python code, right? So there's no longer an excuse. For the longest period of time, there was an excuse that, okay, I can't do AI development because I don't know Python. I'm a Java person. Well, you don't have that excuse anymore. You can do amazing AI applications with Java. And this is a really good call to action for me to make more content about this. This, I think I addressed already, what libraries are available for Java. Okay. Big fan. Thank you. How can I use Gen AI or AI in Spring Boot applications? I think I covered this too. Is prompt engineering talking efficiently? I think I covered this too. Prompt engineering is all about understanding what needs to be communicated. It's basic communication skills. If you're a good communicator, you're going to be a good prompt engineer. If I want to switch from Java developer to Gen AI role, does it have scope and high package salary? I covered the salary thing. Don't make career decisions based on salary. Make decisions on how much you want to invest in yourself and get better, and have the salary guide you there. Okay, you want to do better, you want to improve, you want to deliver value, make salary the motive for it. Nobody's doing social service here. I understand that salary is an important factor. Improve yourself and get better with salary as the incentive. Don't have salary be the incentive to choose a career. Choose a career based on your passion, based on your interests, based on what you would be comfortable doing 8 hours a day. Okay, I covered this. All right, some of these I have already covered in the chat. We have seen an exponential growth during COVID and downfall back to the same state as pre-COVID. When are we going to see a linear growth back in the IT sector again? Why is it taking so long for recovery? I honestly have no idea. Anything that I say is basically just guesswork. I don't think I can have a proper informed answer to this thing. So I'm just going to say I don't know. I hope soon, because there seems to be a lot of people in the job market right now. Usually it's a pendulum, it swings, right? It went to one extreme. When COVID started, it was bad. And when people recovered from COVID, it became really, really good, intensely good, right? And we were talking about the Great Resignation, and now it's gone back again. And the Great Resignation period took about a year, right? A year and a half. That took a while too. So I'm imagining a year and a half, 2 years in this, but it's just guesswork at this time. I have no idea. How do you upskill yourself in general to keep up with the job market? There's lots of things you can do. One is be good at what you do. I've told this multiple times, I don't consider myself an excellent engineer. I would say I'm somewhere in the middle. And I try to learn, I try to figure out what's going on. I learn by teaching. I learn by basically just being curious. I have this tendency to just play around with things. When I figure out something new or something interesting, I just play around with it. So that's what helps me upskill. Just have that curiosity and that interest to learn and dive into things is what helps. Depending on how smart you are, you may have to spend less or more effort in it. For me, I learn slowly, right? I'm not super intelligent. I'm not gifted in that sense. I need to take my time to learn something. So when I find something, I kind of take my time and like, okay, let me figure this out. I set everything aside. I invest time into it, try and figure it out, and then eventually I go, okay, now I know enough to basically do some damage, do something with it, right? So that's basically how I upskill myself. All right, keep asking questions either in the chat or over here, folks. I think asking in that thing is, in the link is better because I can mark things off, but in the chat is fine too. Can you please guide for Java development? Can we connect in LinkedIn? Okay, you're asking somebody else, not me. All right. Looking forward to tomorrow's course. I can see you're excited. You're typing in all caps. This is awesome. I am actually looking forward to. It's a long video. It's a 5-hour long Code With Me series. I actually worked on it for a long time. Okay, and I do this in my spare time, right? I actually spend, I think, close to 3 months working on this thing. So I'm super excited to share this with you all. We're going to do a project reveal tomorrow, and I'm just going to play around with the app for you folks to see. So I'm sure you will all be excited. I'm excited to share this. Agents using LangChain? Yes, LangChain is one way in which you can build agents. But agents are basically a way for you to delegate some work, a narrow scope of work, to an LLM and have it return back a structured response. Okay? Because think about what it takes to build an agent. An LLM, by definition, is a language model. You give it language, it gives back language. That's all it does, right? You give it text, it returns back text. At least that's what the LLMs that we typically use, right? Like ChatGPT, OpenAI, Claude, or Llama 3, any of these open source stuff. It's basically based on language. Now, how do you get an LLM to execute code? You cannot, right? Because all it returns back is language. However, you can write code which makes a call to an LLM, gets back the language, and from the language, figure out what to do, and then do it. That part is imperative code. It's not language model, right? You're basically saying if response says run program, then you have the code to run a program. I'm trivializing, of course. That's not the way agents work. But imagine you had that which did that work. Well, now you have agents, like an LLM has the power to run a program, has the power to go do an online Google search, right? So this combined with what's called function calling or structured output response from LLM makes it very easy to wire this in. If you can force the LLM to return a response in a particular structure, you can take that structure, maybe a JSON structure, parse it, and then do decisions with it. That JSON structure can influence an if block, for example, and have it do different things. And we have the LLM calling shots and influencing your code, which is super powerful. LangChain is one way in which you can do this. There are other frameworks as well. Big fan of yours. Okay, I think I just this. It has been a while. So yeah, I'll cover this. So we're not going to do the code. We're not going to write code tomorrow itself. Tomorrow, I'm going to cover all of these things. I'm going to share the application. I'm going to tell you what the prerequisites are. I'll get you set up. And then I will tell you when the video is going to get released where you can watch the video and follow along. I will also have some follow-up live streams where I can kind of support you if you're running into problems or anything like that. I can support you. So basically, it's kind of like, it's more of a kickoff rather than the thing itself. So, join me tomorrow and I will walk you through everything that you need to know. Similar question. Yeah, there are, we'll talk about the prerequisites and all that stuff tomorrow. All right. I'm going to talk about a couple of other questions that I got. We covered impact on application design, right? This is like, how does integrating an LLM affect how you build an application? And we've realized that, well, no, it doesn't affect it so much. If you're a backend Java developer and you're building microservice systems, the impact is not revolutionary, it is evolutionary, right? You're adding things to your application that changes how each component behaves and not so much the whole structure itself, right? We covered that. This is something to keep in mind when you're thinking about like, okay, how do I add LLM into the mix? Well, this is how you do it, right? Add components there. This is another question that nobody asked in this call, but I have got this question a few times before, and I want to address that. Okay, you want to have ChatGPT talk to you like a pirate. You can ask it whatever the heck you want, right? It doesn't matter. But let's say you're in a bank, you're working in a bank or an insurance company, and you have customer data, and you want to have the LLM tell you whether a customer is, has a certain history, or whether a certain transaction is fraudulent, like I talked about, fraud detection. Now, can you ask OpenAI for it? Can you ask Claude for it? Right? Can you send customer data? Like, how does this work? As Java developers, we kind of assume that all of the data that we do, we deploy to the cloud or whatever else, but there is a huge focus on privacy. There is a huge focus on company data, customer data, PIIs, and all that stuff. Now, how does LLM fit into it? How can I make an OpenAI call with PIIs? Isn't that a problem? Does that rule out AI for certain class of problems? Well, it does for certain problems, but it doesn't entirely, because again, there are things that people normally do to work with these kind of systems where privacy is important, but at the same time also leverage something like OpenAI or Claude, right? Well, the first obvious answer is, well, don't use OpenAI. Just use a local language model, right? There are local LLMs, right? There are open source LLMs, OpenWeight, or just free to use LLMs, which you can download on a server, host it there, have a program which kind of provides an OpenAI API wrapper, and you can make calls to that endpoint instead of OpenAI, and the data is confidential. It's on your machine. Nothing leaves your servers. That's an obvious answer. A second thing that people tend to do is what's called data minimization. Okay, you basically have, you want to ask an LLM something. You say, okay, what is the minimal amount of data that you need to send to the language model to have it return a response, right? You don't think about that when you're making API calls. In fact, there are some application patterns which says, okay, try and send as much data as possible. So for example, you have a product service and a shopping cart service. Well, you say, okay, send the whole product model entity to the shopping cart, because you never know what is needed. You don't want to kind of pick and choose because you don't want the churn, right? I'm not saying always, but there is a pattern. Well, with AI, that's no longer a good practice. With AI, you need to send the minimal amount of data necessary to have the AI do its job. It's useful in general because, we talked about context size. The AI requires a certain, it doesn't work beyond a certain context size. If you're sending a whole lot of data, you might exceed the context size. At worst, you might end up paying more because you're paying for every token that you send and receive from these language models, commercial language models. And thirdly, you have privacy issues. Right? You don't want to send something which you didn't have to send. So there's something called data minimization. When you send data to OpenAI or any of these language models, you minimize it. You send only the essentials, right? But what if the essentials is a problem? Well, you have a concept called anonymization, where you go, okay, well, the name doesn't matter for like checking if a person has fraudulent transactions or not. Well, the name doesn't matter. Well, you change the name to make it anonymous, right? The specific number doesn't matter. So let's say something, you're sending a transaction, the transaction amount, well, it doesn't matter if it is, $200 or $201.30. Well, you randomize it so that it's never traceable back to a certain thing. Basically, you're making sure that the LLM doesn't, your secret data or company data or private data doesn't leak out, but you give the LLM as much context as it needs to give you back what you need, right? So basically, data minimization to begin with, and then anonymization, and I think it's called pseudonymization. I made a note here. Pseudonymization, basically giving it different names or changing data in a certain way so that it's not traceable back. These are techniques that people tend to follow. And then, of course, open source models. That's another really useful thing that you can do. You won't have the privacy problem then. All right, so there are some concepts that I want to get into. Probably I will do a follow-up session on this. We have been at this for almost, it's getting close to 2 hours now, so I'm going to wrap up for today. If there are any questions, you have 10 minutes to ask them. All right, there are a couple of questions here. What's your plan for the next courses? I plan to make some system design courses next, system design interview preparation. So I think just watch out for that. Again, depending on when I have time. So I cannot guarantee any timelines, but that's something that I think I can cover some really valuable ground there. So that's what I plan to do next. I've been following you since 5 years and it's helped me a lot. Well, thank you so much for following me, and keep sending me feedback and keep following. Are you going to launch an LLD and HLD course? I don't know if this is what you consider LLD and HLD. I plan to launch a bunch of system design courses and basically address the whole design process in general. And it's going to serve two purposes. One is to help architects or budding architects learn how to transition from being, with a fixed scope, I have this one problem, I'm going to solve it, to thinking a little bit more high level and saying, okay, there is a broader problem that I need to solve. How do I break it down into smaller components and design those, and how to do trade-offs, how to make decisions where you don't have enough information, and what are the things that you need to know to make those decisions. So for example, okay, there's a thing called a load balancer. Well, what are the things that I could do with the load balancer that I need to know to be able to make that decision, right? How do I make informed decisions? What is the information that helps make informed decisions? So those kind of things I plan to cover. That's the first thing. And the second usage of these courses is to attend system design interviews, right? If you can showcase these things, this information, these concepts in your design, you will make a better impression in front of the interviewer. So that's something that I do plan to make next. I think it is in the theme of low-level design and high-level design, but that's kind of what I plan to cover. All right, I think we're at time. Can you do it sooner rather than later? Thank you. Yes, I will try to prioritize that. After this, the Tinder AI thing, yes, my focus is going to be on system design for sure. I got my first job thanks to you. Now after 5 years, I'm coming back to you to skill up. Thank you. Glad that you're back after 5 years to skill up, but don't wait for another 5 years. Skilling up is an automatic, continuous process. So constantly be at it. You don't have to come to me to skill up, but make sure you're working on it. If you're working on anything at all, the one thing that you would rather choose is yourself, right? So keep at it. All right. So I think we are at time now. Thank you all for joining. It was really nice that you all stopped by and asked me some really good questions. I hope my answers have been helpful. Join tomorrow. I'm doing the project reveal. You are going to love it. I can tell you that because I had a blast working on it. It was stressful at times, it was confusing at times. And again, like I said, I worked on it for a long time because I couldn't find free time to do it. But now that it's here, I'm super excited to release it. Tomorrow, we're going to play with the final product. I haven't done this a lot, right? When I do a code with me, the final product is like, yeah, it's there. It was more of the journey to the final product which matters. And the final product itself, I don't know if I would use it. This is a product that you would have fun using, okay? So I am not kidding. I think you're going to love it. So tune in tomorrow where I'm going to show you the final product. We're going to actually use it to kind of get a sense for what the product looks like and how it feels like. And then I hope that's going to get you pumped up for actually doing the code with me, see, the tutorial walkthrough with me, all right? Thank you all. Thank you for coming. I hope you have a good day, a good evening, a good night, wherever in the world you are. See you folks tomorrow.